Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for joining us. My name is Nick Oborn. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing and Membership at CAA. We are here for the RAAMP coffee gathering. The, the first thing I would ask is if everybody could, besides Liliana and myself, could mute their microphone.
Great joke right at the start where it's like,
Okay, that sounds perfect. And we'll ask that you keep the microphone muted through the presentation so we don't pick up background sound. And then we should all be fine. You have the option to turn your camera on or off, as some of you have seen already. The controls for all that are right under basically what is on your screen under Liliana's face or my face. There's a microphone and a camera that you can click to turn on or off. Also for the webinar, it would probably be useful. You have the control to see Liliana as the main speaker. If you would go to her picture, it'll say Liliana underneath and the sort of several cameras underneath. If you click on that one on her profile, she will stay up as the main speaker for the duration of the talk. I will do a brief introduction of Liliana. For those of us who just joined, if you wouldn't mind muting your microphones. Wonderful. Okay. So Liliana Milkova is the curator of academic programs at the Allen Memorial Art Museum at Oberlin College. She has been at the Allen since 2009. She started at the Allen following a postdoctoral fellowship at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Since 2009, Liliana has significantly expanded the museum's outreach across the curriculum with the development of innovative strategies. I think if you're able to mute your microphone, let us know if you're having any issues with doing that. She's significantly expanded the museum's outreach across the curriculum and development with innovative strategies for teaching with the collection across the College of Arts and Sciences and the Conservatory of Music. Liliana has organized numerous faculty workshops, of which you'll learn about today, and she's overseen many teaching exhibitions. She has also published on pedagogy, 20th century art, photography, and political propaganda. I think that's all we have for an introduction, and then also as far as guidelines for the webinar. The only thing I'll add is that we'll have questions at the end, and if you want to ask a question, you can type it into the chat box that's in the left lower corner of the webinar. Feel free to type in questions while Liliana is giving the presentation, and then we'll address them in order at the end of the presentation. All right, Liliana, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and hello from the Allen Art Museum in Oberlin, Ohio. Before I get started with my presentation, I'd like to remind everybody to mute their mics. I see a couple of mics that have not been muted yet because we can hear all the static from those participants who have not muted their mics. Can you all hear me? Nick, if you could nod and give me a sign. Okay, excellent. So I'm about to share my presentation with you all. Oh, there's one more mic that's not muted. I think it's Liz. Liz, may I ask you to mute your mic?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so give me 2 more seconds and you'll be able to see my screen so I can illustrate what I'm talking about. Can people see this? Did I lose people? Can you still hear me? Okay, thank you.
We can still hear you. We're just all muted, I think, but everything is good.
Nick, if you could also give me heads up that the screen is Okay, I have the wrong presentation on my screen. Here we go. Okay. Oh, this is not working. Excuse me. One more second. I seem to be unable to switch my windows. Excuse the delay. I am uncertain as to what is happening. Okay, I will reshare the screen. Hopefully this time it will be successful. Okay, here we go. Share. That's it. I'm gonna go backward. Aha. Okay, thank you everybody for your patience. I hope you can see my first slide with the title of today's coffee gathering. So I will start with a quick introduction of the Allen Art Museum, which is the campus museum of Oberlin College. Oberlin College has a student body of about 2,900 students and approximately 280 faculty members. Being a liberal arts institution, Oberlin places significant emphasis on successful teaching practices, and faculty in general are deeply invested in adapting, improving, or even reinventing their approach to teaching their own subjects. One of the key factors in making art collection physically and intellectually accessible has been the creation of opportunities to bring faculty from different disciplines together to dialogue with museum staff and fellow instructors about the myriad ways in which the museum can advance course goals and learning objectives, as well as provide an additional or alternative modality for students to grapple with the course material. Those statistics cannot represent. Can I ask people who are joining right now to mute their mic? That would be fantastic. It will make for better sound quality. Those statistics cannot represent the full extent and vibrancy of academic encounters at the Allen. They can at least provide a sense of the museum's deep curricular incorporation. For example, during the last academic year, we hosted class visits from 206 individual courses taught by more than 100 faculty from 38 different departments and programs. My goal today is to give an overview of the 5 types of workshops we've offered at Oberlin and address one of them in greater detail. My hope is that our colleagues will also share about their own experiences and that through the discussion following my brief presentation, we can outline some basic guidelines, recommendations, or really the do's and don'ts, if you will. Every academic year, Oberlin welcomes between 50 and 60 new instructors who attend a 4-day new faculty orientation session. The museum participates in the orientation in 2 capacities, as the venue for the new faculty reception and as the site for an interactive session on teaching and learning with original works of art across academic disciplines. For the new faculty, we design a 2-hour session that introduces them to the scope and depth of the collection, the current and forthcoming exhibitions, as well as to some practical approaches for productive engagement with art. We include both breakout sessions led by faculty who have utilized the museum and thematic explorations of art led by the curators. Each full semester, Oberlin offers about 44 first-year seminars, which, though not mandatory, are extremely popular among the freshmen. Faculty who are new to the first-year seminar or have not taught one of these seminars in a while are required to attend a 2-day workshop, part of which takes place at the museum. The museum session is meant to introduce the instructors to the Allen as a rich campus resource where students can engage in rigorous academic inquiries and attend personally enriching extracurricular programs. We focus on basic literacies, visual literacy, material literacy, and museum literacy, but also on interdisciplinary thinking and evidentiary reasoning. Typically, 75% of the first year seminars utilize the museum, often in more than one class visits. We have approached faculty development through another partnership, namely by collaborating with the Teaching and Learning Center to hold a variety of theme and collection-based workshops. For example, we organized a workshop for language and culture faculty who are especially interested in using art to teach culture-specific concepts and practices or to prepare students for study away. We also offered a 2-hour session for Conservatory faculty to explore how the museum can provide context and content for music classes, but also help strengthen skills and habits of mind such as deep attention and focus. In addition, we offer an annual art and health workshop open to faculty, students, and staff. Originally, we conceived of the workshop as an event for pre-medical students to expand their understanding of medical practices across time and cultures, and to help them practice visual analysis, perspective taking, and emotional recognition. However, due to the growing interest among faculty to situate the museum as a place for students to calm their minds, relax, and de-stress, we shifted gears slightly to include presentations and hands-on activities that highlight art's capacity to nurture healing and wellness. Of course, we also kept the components related to critical observation skills and cultural competence, and that in particular is a topic that's rather big in health professions today. Each spring, through its Mellon Endowment Fund, the Office of Academic Programs offers, on a fairly competitive basis, curriculum development grants for faculty who wish to design a strong museum component for their syllabi and integrate object-based learning in their teaching. The recipients, usually between 4 and 8 professors, attend a day-long workshop, a kind of crash course on museum education, which gives them a broad overview of the collection and lots of examples of its diverse curricular use, and in fact puts faculty in the shoes of novice learners themselves. In addition, the faculty take a behind-the-scenes look, learning from the curators, the registrars, preparators, and security officers about what it takes to realize safely and successfully a museum class visit, a teaching exhibition, or another kind of course-related program. We aim to educate faculty about what's possible and not possible, and why concretely that is. For the Allen, perhaps the most effective faculty development format has been the exhibition-related curricular planning workshop. This type of workshop originated with a very dense, conceptually and literally site-specific installation by Fred Wilson, located in the museum's central gallery, and you see that in the picture on top, and a concurrent retrospective exhibition of his work on view in an adjacent gallery, and that's the picture on the bottom. Both exhibitions were up during the entire 2016-17 academic year, which gave us time to orient ourselves in terms of their enormously rich teaching potential and to figure out the best approaches and activities that would allow for meaningful engagement with the individual works, but also the installations as a whole. At the end of the fall semester, we offered a faculty workshop specifically on these two exhibitions and their capacity to address in thoughtful and memorable ways questions about history, race, gender, and ethnicity, among other topics. And in fact, during the spring semester, class visits to these two exhibitions doubled. In the remaining time, I'd like to focus on a more recent example of an exhibition-related curricular planning workshop. Last spring, the spring of 2018, the Allen co-organized with Cornell University a large loan exhibition of etchings by one of the most influential painters and printmakers of all time, the 17th century Dutch artist Rembrandt van Rijn. To expand the exhibition's curricular impact, we held a 2-hour workshop in mid-December 2017, that is 2 months before the exhibition's opening and right after classes had ended, but before exam period had begun. We asked the dean of the college to send out the invitations to lend extra weight and emphasis on the unique opportunities that the exhibition presented. Workshop participants explored in depth the pedagogic potential and interdisciplinary connections that the exhibition offered, while discovering Rembrandt's technical virtuosity and experimentation, his insightful interpretation of the human psyche, and his versatility in capturing the natural world. The workshop consisted of an overview of the exhibition's thematic scope and scholarly contributions, short presentations from museum staff and faculty who had taught with Rembrandt already, a demonstration and discussion of Rembrandt's technique, and a viewing of selected Rembrandt prints in the Allen's collection. Our key goals for the workshops were, first, to familiarize faculty with Rembrandt's work and its broad socio-historical, cultural, and economic contexts, in order to suggest the extent to which they were all interconnected. Our second goal was to equip faculty with basic art historical knowledge and visual analytical tools, specifically to engage with prints such as Rembrandt's, which invite close and slow looking and gratify the viewer with the discoveries he or she or they make. We also hoped to model for faculty close-looking activities and object-based learning strategies to empower them to use similar strategies in their own classes. Our next goal was to engage faculty in a sensorial way with the tools and materials that Rembrandt and many artists after him used in printmaking, and to encourage the workshop participants to consider the artistic process as equally important and informative as the image itself. Another goal of ours was to foster conversations and the brainstorming of ideas among the faculty themselves and with the museum staff in an interactive environment of shared knowledge and purpose. Finally, we wanted to solidify the faculty members' understanding of the museum as a place where both rigorous scholarly research and integrative education are happening every day and at the highest level at that. I think I might be one slide. Here we go. Finally, I'd like to conclude with some reflections on what we accomplished and the potential long-term impact of such workshops. First, we created excitement and anticipation, even a kind of buzz around the exhibition 2 months before it was scheduled to open. That allowed faculty to include the exhibition in their course planning well before they had to finalize their syllabi for the spring semester. We gave the exhibition curator and other museum staff a chance to contribute their own expertise at the curriculum development stage, and thus be more involved and invested in the success of the gallery visits. May I ask anybody who has recently joined this conversation to mute their mics? I can hear some outside noise that's not coming from here. I'm sorry I'm being so particular, but for the sake of clarity of sound, I'd like to remind people to mute their mics. All right, I'll go back one. We gave the exhibition curator and other museum staff a chance to contribute their own expertise at the curriculum development stage and thus be more involved and invested in the success of the gallery visits. We provided faculty with an entry point to individual artworks and the exhibition's larger themes, enabling them to think imaginatively about class visits and art-based assignments. We got faculty interested in and more confident about integrating other temporary exhibitions or works on permanent display. Some faculty even considered the possibility of incorporating visual art in their own, primarily text-based research. In terms of numbers, the exhibition served directly 20 individual courses in 12 departments and programs, such as biology, chemistry, comparative literature, Hispanic studies, history, philosophy, psychology, and religion. In terms of student curricular encounters, some examples include practicing close, active looking, learning about the chemical and technical components of etching, discussing how mental states can be inscribed on the entire body, exploring trade relations and colonial expansion during Rembrandt's time, considering the status of the physician and other professionals in 17th century Amsterdam, finding visual evidence for the shift in conceptions of the individual at that time, and finally, drawing conceptual parallels between the artistic interpretation and literary translation of texts. Upon closing, I wanted to outline a couple of lessons learned. Plan in advance with faculty schedules in mind and ensure buy-in from the senior administration. Provide sample lesson plans and activities and allow plenty of time for discussion and the engagement of the senses. Thank you.
I think we're Liliana, thank you so much. And I'm especially happy that all the technology worked. So we're going to move on to the next part of the webinar. We're going to open it up to a sort of discussion about do's and don'ts on faculty workshops. I'd encourage people to type any questions they might have into the chat box on the lower left-hand side of the screen. And I don't know, Liliana, I don't know if you want to just start off with some do's and don'ts to give people some sort of fodder to ask questions about, or if people just have questions to jump right in and ask.
Some of my do's were included in the lessons learned section of my presentation. Some of the don'ts is perhaps don't over-enroll workshops like that. We capped our Rembrandt workshop at 25 because that was the number of people we can comfortably fit in the one space where we could conduct this workshop, but also can allow for a general discussion as well as small group discussions and a kind of more hands-on approach to the exhibition. I'm happy to take questions or perhaps hear from colleagues who would like to share some of their challenges or successes, any obstacles they might have encountered, whether physical obstacles or intellectual obstacles, or perhaps something in the mentality of faculty that might have been difficult.
Yes, I was going to say, if the chat box is not the best way for you to ask a question, you can also feel free to unmute your mic and just ask a question. Anybody?
I'll ask a question. This is Elizabeth. I can't seem to type it. So just a quick question. Did you offer funding to the faculty to attend the exhibition, the Rembrandt workshop? And do you find that that tends to be a component you have to figure out with these faculty workshops?
We did not. We certainly didn't. We thought the exhibition was special enough to attract attention as it was. However, we normally offer small stipends to faculty who attend our curriculum development grant workshop every spring. And we've gone through several iterations of those, or several variants of those curriculum development grants. We started out with more substantial stipends and 3-day museum residencies for faculty who wanted to really revamp their syllabus to take a museum turn. But in the last 3 years, we've offered stipends of $250, which essentially cover faculty attendance of the day-long workshop and then a follow-up meeting with museum staff to plan their class visits.
Thanks. And I see that we have 2 questions. The first one from UR Museums. Am I muted?
Yep.
Sorry, I was muted. I see we have 2 questions. The first one from UR Museums. Do you find that there is a lot of support from deans to have faculty participate, or are they in a way mandatory for new faculty?
Yes, I find that our deans are increasingly more and more supportive. Typically, 3 or 4 of the deans would participate in the new faculty orientation, and so they would hear firsthand about the effectiveness of museum class visits. They would participate in the activities that we designed for the new faculty, but they would also hear from current faculty who share their experience teaching with the museum. So I think it's really important to include the deans when organizing such workshops, and then have them converted, and then they will be great ambassadors for the museum and object-based learning. I think in general there is an interest in deepening interdisciplinary thinking, experiential learning, and integrative learning. So as long as the deans are on board with the changing educational scene out there, I think they would be supportive of these new museum-based pedagogies. You might have to educate your deans a little bit about why they work, what makes object-based learning so effective.
Thank you. And so the next question, how often, this is Elaine Gustafson, how often are you offering these programs?
So we work with the new faculty and the first-year seminar instructors once a year. So that's already 2 workshops. And typically we offer another 2 or 3. So my guess is on average 4 faculty development, curriculum development workshops each academic year.
And then another question from Jennifer Kingsley. I find challenging getting faculty at my research university to take time to realize that they might have interest in taking a, in quotes, museum turn, and am interested in what kinds of testimonials, feedback you get from faculty that might be persuasive to other faculty to try it.
Great. So most of the testimonials that we get are in follow-up emails when faculty share really successful student assignments, or when I attend student presentations that are related to the museum collection or current exhibitions. In the past, we have conducted pre and post museum visit surveys among all the faculty who utilize the museum during a given semester. And in fact, in collaboration with a colleague of mine, the former director of the Teaching and Learning Center at Oberlin, we published the results of those surveys. So I think there's some hard data there, as well as anecdotal evidence. A future goal of ours is to tap into the first-year seminars and perhaps follow the students in a given first-year seminar over their 4 years at Oberlin and see how their encounters with the museum evolve over their education at Oberlin. But this is still just a plan in the making, nothing concrete yet.
Thank you, Liliana. And another question for you. Christina Larson would like to know more about new faculty orientation.
Okay, so the new faculty orientation is not mandatory for the faculty, and we have between 50 and 60 new faculty because there are many, many visiting assistant professors who come for a year or two each academic year. So it's a 4-day thing that's not mandatory. There's only one session, the Title IX session, that's mandatory for everybody. However, I'm really pleased to say that the new faculty usually everybody gets to attend the museum session because I think it's a great way to shake things up from sitting in a classroom all day long and hearing presentations, hearing statistics. So when we bring them to the museum, we get them to stand out, to do activities, to walk around the museum, to participate in close looking and visual, VTS activities. So even though the museum session is not mandatory, everybody ends up attending. We've discovered that it's especially successful if we offer the museum session for new faculty right before the new faculty reception. So everybody who's planning to come to the reception sort of automatically comes to the museum training session first. I'm happy to elaborate on any particular details that Christina might be interested in knowing.
If Christina has follow-up questions to that, we'll see. And then there's another question from UR Museums. Have you seen a noticeable increase in attendance since your first year? And the second question, do you see an increase in students who use your collection for research from faculty who attended the workshop?
Do you mind reading the second part of the question?
Well, why don't we'll go with the first, and then I'll
Okay.
Ask the second when we're all done with that.
So I've definitely seen a huge increase in faculty and student use of the museum. Students are noticeably more comfortable in the museum, more comfortable talking about visual art, and I can see them navigate the museum space much more confidently. I can say the same thing regarding many, many faculty. One of our overall goal in academic programs at the Allen is to train faculty to teach on their own with the museum collections. And I have seen that more and more with faculty who feel comfortable and confident and competent enough to do self-guided visits to the museum. It's working, in other words.
And
I think I'm ready for the second half.
Yeah, I was just going to say the second part of the question. Do you see an increase in students who use your collection for research from the faculty who attended the workshop? So in other words, sort of a trickle-down effect from the faculty who are coming.
Yes. In fact, I have observed a number of course assignments designed by faculty who attend these workshops that are meant to bring the students back to the museum and to get them to think about works in the collection from the specific disciplinary vantage point of that particular class. So we've seen more student research projects on works in our collection. We've seen more winter term projects on the museum as a whole or on certain aspects of the collection. And the winter term at Oberlin is the month of January when there are no classes, but students basically do independent projects. So it could be anything at all.
Thank you. And so a question from our very own Olivia, who works on the RAAMP project at CAA.
Thank you.
She's interested to learn if the faculty workshops are available to other teachers in the area that may not work at Oberlin.
That's a great question. At this point, we have organized these workshops specifically with Oberlin College faculty and staff in mind. However, occasionally people from the larger Cleveland area would contact us and ask whether they can attend these workshops, and we've never turned anybody down unless the workshop was already fully enrolled, but we always keep a wait list as well. So right now we have our hands full with Oberlin's 280 or so faculty members, but in the future, it's definitely something to consider. And for example, in addition to the Rembrandt workshop that we organized specifically for Oberlin College faculty, we offered later, in fact, in the spring after the exhibition had opened, we offered a Rembrandt study day. And that was open to anybody, in the larger Northeast Ohio, Southern Michigan, I don't know, Western Pennsylvania area. And we had people who attended from probably a radius of 200 to 300 miles.
Okay. Thank you. And I actually have a question too now. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about some of the more interesting interdisciplinary, interactions that you've had at the museum, going maybe even outside the arts and humanities, sort of some of that, the work in the museum that's jumped outside into different areas of the university.
Yes, so most recently we've been developing a really, I think to me personally, interesting set of activities or exercises that build or enhance empathy. So, and this particular type of activity is really applicable to any discipline. We started working with biology students. We developed this exercise in conjunction with a biology professor in his human physiology course, which studied well-being and thriving on one hand, and then the opposite, depression, poor health. So these two kind of two opposite sides of human existence. And he wanted his students were designing specific implements to aid people with concrete disabilities. And the professor wanted the students to develop an empathetic connection with people who had impaired vision or low hearing or impaired mobility. And so we developed a set of exercises based on objects in our collection that got students to connect with the subject in the photograph or in the print and think about how different emotions and mental states can be read across the human body just like a text. And we drew parallels with texts related to these works of art. I don't know if this really makes a lot of sense, but we used, and this might be more helpful to everybody, we used a particular set of questions developed by Stanford University's design school. It's called the Empathize Mode, and you can find them online if you look up Stanford D School Empathize Mode. And so it's a 3-step process that relies on visual observation to create a personal, emotional connection to a photograph. And of course, what's depicted in the photograph. So we based our activities on that, and we use that particular approach in other courses at Oberlin.
Thanks. Yeah, very interesting. Elizabeth Schlatter has another question.
Okay.
How do you decide which exhibitions will get a workshop like the Rembrandt one?
So we do not do very many special exhibitions every academic year. At most, it's one. We're extremely limited in terms of gallery space. We have more than 15,000 objects in our collection, and about 10% of that is on view at any one time. We don't have a specially designated temporary exhibition gallery, so we have to be very inventive in how we use our space. So it's usually the one special exhibition that gets a workshop, or if it's an exhibition that is especially difficult to parse out or offers a lot of teaching opportunities, but are not easy to relate to. So it really it's on a case by case basis, to be honest. It really, for example, in next academic year, so 2019, 2020, we're doing an exhibition called Afterlives of the Black Atlantic. And this exhibition will also be out throughout the entire academic year. And we've already started curriculum planning for it. We've had faculty focus groups, curriculum planning workshop, just so that we can be prepared to deal with a topic that is so fraught, so rich and yet so disturbing as a subject matter.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And are there any other questions? I don't see any more queued up on the chats on the left. I wanted to give people an opportunity. If anyone else has any others, you can feel free to unmute your microphone and just ask, or type it into the chat box. Elizabeth Schlatter asked, can you mention the empathy mode questions again?
Yes. So it's called the empathize mode, and it's a 3-step process. The first question is what the figure in the photograph, and it's particularly designed with photographs in mind, photographs of people doing something that is to be analyzed and related to the way they're doing and perhaps their limitations when doing it. So the first question is, let me try to recall them correctly, what the person is doing, a description of what that figure is doing. Then the second question is really observing how they're doing it, whether they seem to be having some difficulty, or they're doing it in a particularly contemplative way, or in a particularly whatever way they're doing it. And then the third question is really projecting meaning into why they're doing it. So what they're doing, how they're doing it, and then why they might be doing it. They have a wonderful PDF that can be downloaded from their website that explains the rationale of how we connect with people by closely observing what they're doing, and how we can gain deeper insight into their mental state purely by observing them do that.
Thank you, Liliana. UR Museums wants to ask a technical question.
Yes.
How do you structure the workshops?
There are several aspects that I think should always be present. One of them is allowing faculty who already have experience teaching with the collection or with temporary exhibitions or curating curricular exhibitions to speak up, to present to their colleagues. At least at Oberlin, faculty are very interested in what their colleagues are doing, how they're doing it, and what effective strategies, new effective strategies they might have employed. So allowing really the experts to speak, whether it's the faculty or the curators. I think it's really important to also place the faculty in the shoes of the students themselves, to engage them in exercises, whether it's visual thinking strategies or visual analysis or some kind of kinesthetic activity. Get them to experience looking at and thinking with art objects from the vantage point of the student, and then providing them with as much information as possible in the most concise format. So informative workshops that have hands-on interactive activities, and the opportunity for the experts to present on things they've already done and consider successful.
Okay, thank you. And Robert Wicks has a question. Could you discuss the structure of the faculty focus groups and if there is compensation for the participants?
We have not offered compensation to any of the participants in our faculty focus groups. In fact, I'm not sure whether we're allowed to do that. In terms of the Mellon Curriculum Development Grants, we can do that because the stipends are processed after the end of the academic year. And these are Mellon grants. However, in terms of the focus groups, it's always been during the academic year. And to be honest, it has not even occurred to me to offer some sort of stipend for that. I said something earlier about this kind of sense of shared purpose, and I've worked towards that in my 9 years at Oberlin. We're all educators at Oberlin College and the Allen Art Museum. So I hope everybody gets equally invested in ensuring the best possible teaching and learning conditions.
Thank you, Liliana. And again, I'll offer as maybe a sort of a last call if there are any other questions. Okay, it seems like maybe not. Thank you, Liliana, that was wonderful. Thank you everybody who participated, who joined. Thank you for your questions. I just have a few sort of housekeeping notes. If anybody on this call has some ideas for topics that would be good for RAAMP coffee gatherings, please feel free to email Olivia here at CAA, who works on the program. Her email is oknauss@collegeart.org, but she will also be emailing the participants on this call afterward with some information. And just so everybody knows, also this call was recorded, so we'll have that for people to refer back to as a resource as they need. Liliana, did you have anything else to add?
I suppose last call, whether anybody is interested in sharing some of their experience regarding working with faculty, training them to think creatively about teaching with art. I guess I can also say that I'm happy to share any kind of physical hard copy documents or articles or brochures that we have put together for our faculty, or the agendas for these faculty workshops. I have several dozens of agendas that I can share with people, or anything that might be helpful when planning, conceptualizing similar workshops. Mm-hmm. Let me know. Reach out, email me. I'm always happy to help. Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
would be wonderful. Okay, agendas.
Yeah, and Liliana, if you want to share, if you feel comfortable sharing your contact information with the group, they might, some people might want to reach out to you for specific questions afterward, or materials, things like that.
Of course. Whoops. I'm typing it right now.
Oh.
Here it is.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody. And we will keep everybody posted about when the next RAAMP coffee gathering will be scheduled.
And Nick and
yeah.
Olivia, I will send some sample workshop agendas to you guys, and perhaps you can circulate them to everybody who attended this coffee gathering.
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much, Nick and Olivia. It was a pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for joining in.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Goodbye.
You're welcome. Bye.